on the vlog again. Just can't wait to do a vlog again. The life I love is making vlogs for my friends, and I can't wait to do a vlog again. Doing a vlog again. Going places that I've never been. Seeing things that I may never see again. And I can't wait to do a vlog again. Hello everyone and welcome back to The Top Vloggers. As always, I'm your host, High and Mighty Joe, hanging out with
your co-host, the lovely Cat.
And we are headed to the Dan Quale Vice Presidential Learning Center and Museum. It should be fun, exciting, and very educational.
You can join us on all of our social media websites, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Top Vloggers. Also, if you'd like to help us reach the top, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com/thetopvloggers. Without your help and support, these vlogs will be almost impossible to do. There will be a link in the description below.
And if you are new here, you can hit that subscribe button, take it one step further, and ring that notification bell to keep you up to date on all the future adventures that we will be going on our channel. We do a vlog each and every single day just for you guys. So let's get going. Today's vlog brings us to the Dan Quale Center and Museum. Let's go inside and learn a little bit more, shall we?
Vice President in history. Oldest piece is, let's see, it dates back to July 1789. The very first Vice President of the United States, John Adams. I have pieces for all 48 different Vice Presidents. Indiana's second in the nation for Vice Presidents. We've had 6 of the 48 come from Indiana. In the exhibits, they're easy to find. You look for little blue and gold signs that say Indiana 6, but for reference, they're numbers 17, 21, 26, 28, 44, and 48. It's easy to remember. Everybody is in chronological order. It starts at the top of the steps with John Adams. It'll go to the front of the upper gallery, switches sides, comes back, finishes upstairs with Garrett Augustus Hobart of Paterson, New Jersey. Starts again here in the lower gallery with Teddy Roosevelt. Goes on the outside wall, jumps over, and then goes clockwise around each of the inner exhibits. Finishes on the back wall. The only one out of order is number 44. That's Vice President Quale. He's got the big section downstairs since his hometown. Good day to come. Calm before the storm. Between September and May, I see up to 10,000 school kids. Group's coming Monday, but not today. So you lucked out. I just need to flip on a few lights upstairs and let you take a look around. If you have any questions, ask.
Alrighty, thank you.
There's a seal of the Vice President of the United States of America, and it's in a clock. And right here they have the Constitution, the rules of the game, right here. Check out all these different things that they got. Mr. Jefferson was born in Virginia. This original newspaper is from 1800s. In the third column, you will find a series of laws passed with Jefferson as vice president and signed into law by President Adams. Saying this original newspaper right here from 1789, in the second column, third paragraph, you will find the salaries of the president and the vice president. The fourth paragraph contains a report of Vice President Adams breaking the first tie vote in the Senate. Wow. There's that vice presidential seal that we saw downstairs, and it's a clock. The New Nation, 1789 to 1828. I assume these things belonged to Mr. Jefferson at one point in time. Now this is all about Aaron Burr right here. Aaron Burr was the vice president to Thomas Jefferson, 1801 to 1805, Democratic Republican Party. We got a lot of cool artifacts. That's for sure. A lot of old papers. The 12th Amendment to the Constitution ratified July 27th, 1804. Now this is George Clinton, Vice President to Thomas Jefferson, 1805 to 1809, and Vice President to James Madison in 1809 and to 1812. Now this original newspaper right here is from 1812. In the third column and first paragraph, you will find a report of the death of Vice President George Clinton. George Clinton is no more. Elbridge Gerry, number 5. Vice President to James Madison, 1813 to 1814. He died in office. Check out that really pretty plate. They got 3 of these. They got some more stuff down here. Even kind of got a shot glass up there with them on it. This is number 6, Daniel Tompkins. He was the vice president to James Monroe, 1817 to 1825. There you see looks like an ashtray up there. And you see Kennedy and Johnson. There's the Nixon family on that plate. Nixon Agnew hat. The westward expansion, 1829 to 1859. Now this original newspaper is from 1825 and is in the first column and third paragraph. You will find the address. You'll find an address by Vice President John C. Calhoun. And John C. Calhoun was our 7th vice president, and he was the vice president to John Quincy Adams, or John Q. Adams, 1825 to 1829, and he was the vice president to Andrew Jackson from 1829 to 1832. Now, our 8th vice president is Martin Van Buren. He was the vice president to Andrew Jackson from 1833 to 1837. He was a later elected president for one term. And in this letter that you see right here, it says in the first sentence of the original 1835 letter, there is a reference to Martin Van Buren as the Vice President of the United States. Martin Van Buren. Now, Richard Johnson, he was our 9th vice president. He was the vice president to Martin Van Buren, 1837 to 1841. He was a Democrat, and he was from Kentucky. It says right here, this original newspaper is from 1836, and in the fourth column and 14th and 15th paragraphs, you will find an article addressing that the Senate elected Vice President Richard Johnson to the office. And of course, over here you have number 10, John Tyler. Now it says in this right here, this paper right here, this is the original newspaper from 1840. In the first column, in the first paragraph, you will find an advertisement for William Henry Harrison for president and John Tyler for vice president. And of course, he was the vice president to William Henry Harrison, 1841, part of the Whig Party. And he succeeded the presidency upon the death of the president. And of course, we have been to the grave of Mr. Harrison as well. Now, George Dallas was the 11th vice president. He was the vice president to James Polk. 1845 to 1849. He was from Pennsylvania. It says Vice President George Mifflin Dallas was immortalized by his support in the Senate of President Polk's objective of bringing the independent Texas into the United States. This ensuring victory in the war with Mexico over the annexation of Texas also gave the United States some of its largest land gains since the Louisiana Purchase. To honor the Vice President for his support of this cause, a small town in Texas was named for him. Additionally, a large town in Oregon was named in his honor for his position on Polk's 540-40 or fight stand on the boundaries dispute with England over the states. And there you can see Mr. Polk, President Polk, and then Vice President Mr. Dallas. Now, Millard Fillmore was our 12th Vice President of the United States. He was the Vice President to Zachary Taylor from 1849 into 1850. He succeeded to the presidency upon the death of the president. He was from New York. It says this original newspaper is from 1848, and in the first column and first paragraph, you will find an advertisement for Zachary Taylor for president and Millard Fillmore for vice president. Now we are speaking on our 13th Vice President of the United States. He was the Vice President to Franklin Pierce. His name was William King. And here is some of the things that they have about him as well. It says right here, it says this original newspaper is from 1853. In the third column and second paragraph, you will find a report of Vice President-elect William King being given special permission to take the oath of office while in Cuba. He was visiting there for health reasons. Now we are speaking on the 14th Vice President right here. He was the Vice President to James Buchanan, 1857 to 1861, part of the Democratic Party. He was from Kentucky, and his name was John Breckinridge. And you can see right there. What a mustache. I'll give him that. This original document is an 1864 report of the communication of the Confederate Secretary of War and the former Vice President John Breckinridge. Just thought we'd take a minute to go ahead and show you the top floor. That's definitely very beautiful right there. That says Grand Union 1775. It says Continental 1775. There's one over here at the very beginning. I just couldn't read it from there. It says Sons of Liberty, the Rebellious Stripes, circa 1765. Wow. This is the Dan Quale Commemorative Foundation Incorporated. Very pretty. Right here on this podium. So you got the flag going, and it says our vice presidents from 1789 all the way to the present. Saying we'll be going through the rest of them. That is for sure. That says Gadsden 1776, don't tread on me. And this one says Hopkins, and that's 1777. And then this one down here says Fort McHenry, Star Spangled Banner, 1814. Now, our 15th Vice President of the United States was the Vice President to Abraham Lincoln. He, from 1861 to 1865, part of the Republican Party, and he was from Maine. His name was Hannibal Hamlin. As you can see, some of the things that they have here. And then this right over here says The Life and Times of Hannibal Hamlin. So that's kind of cool. Right here it says the original envelope is from circa 1860. It bears the images of President Abraham Lincoln and Vice President Hannibal Hamlin. Now, this says the 16th Vice President of the United States was the Vice President to Abraham Lincoln, 1865. Democratic Party succeeded to the presidency upon the death of President Lincoln. He was from Tennessee, and his name was Andrew Johnson. This right here says, this copy of General Orders 67 notified the troops that Vice President Andrew Johnson had assumed the presidency upon the death of Abraham Lincoln. And of course we know from our history that Abraham Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater by John Wilkes Booth. Now our 17th Vice President of the United States is Mr. Colfax. He was the Vice President to Ulysses S. Grant from 1869 until 1873, the Republican Party, and he was actually from the state of Indiana, which we're in right now. Wow, check that out. Well, it says right here, it says this original newspaper is from 1868, and in the first column and first paragraph you will find the announcement of the election of Ulysses S. Grant and Mr. Colfax as President and Vice President. It says right here, it says this original newspaper is from 1873, and in the first column and first paragraph you will find a story about Vice President Colfax involvement in the credit mobilier scandal. Now the 18th Vice President was the Vice President to Ulysses S. Grant from 1873 to 1875, Republican Party. He died in office from Massachusetts. His name was Henry Wilson. And here's some of the things about him. It says this original Harper's Weekly magazine is from 1875, and it describes the funeral of Vice President Henry Wilson. Also in the display is an original program from Henry Wilson's funeral. There's the program right there. Industrial America, 1878 to 1900. Well, now we're talking about the 19th president or vice president of the United States. He was the vice president to Rutherford B. Hayes from 1877 to 1881, part of the Republican Party. He was from New York. His name was William Wheeler. The election of 1876 was one of the most disputed in history. So, there we go. Right here he has the daily graphic. It says right here, it says this original 1877 letter is written by Vice President William Wheeler. In the letter, Wheeler references the disputed election of 1876 with the long drawn out and vexed presidential canvas. Here's some other cool artifacts. Check that out. Gotta love those plates. I remember when they used to sell they used to sell the presidential plates and stuff like that on television. You could catch infomercials with them selling those and things like that. There's a nice jacket. Looks like an ice bucket. Some more plates, another shot glass. Now, our 20th Vice President of the United States was Chester Arthur. He was the Vice President to James Garfield, 1881. He's part of the Republican Party, and he succeeded to the presidency upon the death of the president, and he was from New York. And this is a campaign handkerchief. It says this original 1880s campaign handkerchief features the images of James Garfield and Chester Arthur. Wow. Oh, that is old and very awesome. I like that. Now, if you ever wondered, where does the vice president live? Most people actually think he lives in the White House with the president and his family. However, that is a very big misconception because the vice president actually lives in a 33-room Victorian Queen Anne style mansion, which is located on the grounds of the United States Naval Observatory. Before 1974, the vice president lived wherever he was able. If a vice president was rich enough, he could afford to purchase a temporary home in Washington, D.C. But more often than not, the vice presidents simply rented out hotel rooms or other temporary quarters. In 1974, Congress approved the use of the mansion as the official residence of the vice president and his family. Gerald and Betty Ford would have been the first occupants of the mansion in its new capacity. However, Ford's assumption of the presidency's premeditated the move. Nelson Rockefeller, who already owned a home in Washington, declined its use. The first family to occupy the mansion were Walter and Joan Mondale. Each vice president has since added renovations to the home. As expected, the home contains state-of-the-art security equipment, includes bulletproof glass, and the Quale children discovered one advantage you can actually play ball inside the house without having to worry about breaking a window. And there's the house then. And then this one was when the Vice President and Mrs. Cheney was living there. You can see that. Kind of what it looks like a little bit more today. Maybe we'll get a chance to actually take a tour of the grounds someday. I don't know. That'd be really awesome if we could do that. Now, Thomas Hendrix is our 21st Vice President of the United States, and he was the Vice President to Grover Cleveland in 1865, part of the Democratic Party, and he died in office. And he was also right here from the state of Indiana, one of the 6 from the state of Indiana. We've had 6 Vice Presidents from this state, and what a great place for the Vice President Joe Museum to be right here. Now it says right here, it says, this frame contains an 1884 handwritten response by Vice President Thomas Hendrix to a letter of congratulations on winning the vice presidency. There you go. Some really cool things right here too. Cleveland and Hendrix. I like that. Very beautiful. Life and Speeches of Thomas A. Hendrix. Now, our 22nd Vice President of the United States was the Vice President to Benjamin Harrison, 1889 to 1893. His name was Levi Morton. He was a part of the Republican Party. He was also from New York. And here are some of the artifacts about him. Looks like he got his signature possibly right there. It says right here, it says, this original 1888 campaign handkerchief features the images of Benjamin Harrison and Levi Morton. You can see right there, it says for president and for vice president. And they won. Now, Adlai Stevenson was our 23rd Vice President of the United States. He was the Vice President to Grover Cleveland from 1893 to 1897, part of the Democratic Party. He was from Illinois. And here are some of his things. And there's another beautiful handkerchief. You see Mr. Cleveland and Mr. Stevenson on there. Tariff Reform, 1892, 1896, Democrat. Now, our 24th Vice President of the United States was William McKinley, Vice President to William McKinley was Garrett Hobart, and he was a part of the Republican Party. He died in office. He was actually from New Jersey, and he was a Vice President from 1897 to 1899, so just 2 years. Now, Garrett Hobart possesses the qualities of an ideal vice president. He was in agreement with the president on the issues. His home state of New Jersey was a good geographical balance. A former businessman, he had enough wealth to entertain visiting dignitaries in style. Furthermore, he was an effective administrator of the Senate. The 12th Amendment, resolving an unforeseen problem, ratified July 27, 1804. This amendment provides for separate ballots for president and vice president. Its ratification was a result of the electoral tie in the 1800 election between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Article 2, Section 1 provides, in case of removal of this president from office or his death, resignation, or inability to discharge the powers and duties of said office, the same shall devolve on the vice president. It says this passage was unclear, though. Did the same refer to the words power and duties, or to the word office? If the president died, would the vice president be the president or simply the acting president? This question was not answered until 1841, when President William Henry Harrison died in office and Vice President John Tyler succeeded him, taking the oath of office. Tyler set a precedent that still exists to this day. Well, thank you so much for coming on this vlog. Don't forget to join us tomorrow where we come back for part 2. It should be fun, exciting, and educational.
It was very educational seeing all the vice presidents that we've had in the past.
And I think that's going to do it for us here today. Don't forget to join us again tomorrow where we get to go ahead and list the second half of the vice presidents of all 48 of them that we've had. It's a fun and exciting adventure. I hope you guys come back and enjoy it. I think that's going to do it for us here today. Until tomorrow, top vloggers!